So this will probably be my last recording in 2024. There are still a lot of films that came out in 2024 that I want to get my review and opinion out, but I'm going to have a special video made for those films, so be on the lookout for those. So yeah, I decided to use this last one on, of course, The Lion King Mufasa, or Mufasa, The Lion King, whichever way you want to call it. This movie was directed by Barry Jenkins, who also directed Moonlight, another film that I really enjoyed, and not by Jon Favreau, and you really will get to see how noticeably different this movie is compared to the original film. Now, as the title, implies, this is a prequel to The Lion King 2019. Instead of animating a film and telling its own original story, they decided to say, fuck it, let's just cash in on the whole live action aspect of it, because the first movie made so much money that we just can't not do it. Yeah, The Lion King 2019 made well over $1.7 billion. So yeah, in the eyes of Disney, this was considered a massive success. But not to everyone else. When I first saw the 2019 Lion King film, I really thought it was kind of mid. There was things to enjoy about it, but as time went on and I started noticing the glaring issues with the film, yeah, it really isn't that great of a film at all. In fact, it's one of the worst of the live action remakes Disney has ever made. I would even argue that it's one of the bottom, like maybe the bottom 5. But of course, it doesn't matter. This movie made so much money, and there's so many videos out there that goes over why that movie is really bad and the things that they decided to do and change were really for the worst. But this is a new film. It's directed by Barry Jenkins and not Jon Favreau, which Jon Favreau had a really heavy emphasis on trying to make the original film as realistic as possible, and that included not having the lions really show expression or really show any emotion at all. That was definitely one of the biggest complaints about the original film. It's just that this just looked like a bunch of boring lions. It didn't even feel special at all. Why on earth are you remaking The Lion King, which is known for having very expressive characters? Honestly, any animated movie back in the 90s had very expressive characters. Why make that movie or remake it with animals that barely even look like they even want to be alive? It just doesn't make any sense. And boy, oh boy, did they take that criticism well, because they really showed off a lot of expression in all the characters in this new film. So, hey, good on them for that. But of course, there are so many other issues with this. First off, the story is very boring. I really did not find it interesting at all. I really wasn't even looking for this kind of a film to really begin with. I mean, yeah, the whole mystery of how Scar became kind of an asshole was kind of something I've always thought about, but I didn't really need a whole film to describe it. And the film that we got definitely it definitely wasn't satisfying at all. It basically is a flashback type of movie where Rafiki is, telling the story of Mufasa to Simba's newest daughter, Kiara, and Timon and Pumbaa are also there listening and kind of interrupting the whole film. That was definitely a big issue with this. It's like they kept cutting the film just so Timon and Pumbaa can interrupt and, throw in their cheesy jokes. And, there was some that was kind of funny, but other times it was just like, can we get back to the original story? It almost makes me think that they even have enough material to tell a full story and its own original film. Like, they only added the scenes, or they only made it like flashback story because there just wasn't enough to deal with. If that's the case, then holy shit, Disney, you've already had issues with storytelling, but man, are you still a long ways to go. So yeah, the story felt a bit choppy and it really wasn't that interesting. It really didn't really satisfy, my interest, so it was kind of pointless, if anything. I mean, yeah, questions were answered, but yeah, that's just it. They were just answered like, oh, now we know. The music also really wasn't anything too special at all for me. I really liked the song, I've Always Wanted to Have a Brother. I believe that's the title of it. But that's really all I liked. Every other song was really forgettable. And the scene with Mufasa and which, by the way, I guess spoiler in case you haven't seen The Lion King, there's a song between Mufasa and Sarabi, and they have a little like romance song, kind of like Can You Feel the Love Tonight. But this song that they had, it was very hip-hop based. At least it felt like it was a hip-hop song, which is kind of a shame because Disney keeps doing this, especially with their newest film Wish. A lot of the songs were just hip-hop songs. They didn't even feel like musical pieces. The voice acting for everyone was pretty fine. I thought that the Mads Mikkelsen, I believe it's pronounced, who played Kyros, Kimba the White Lion, but I pretty much thought he did the best job out of everyone. I really didn't enjoy Mufasa's performance at all. I really just didn't feel Mufasa when I heard him. Obviously, no one is going to ever replace James Earl Jones, and this being a prequel, they were really trying to do that, or at least replace it, but it didn't really feel, as grand and mighty as Mufasa was. Beyonce and Donald Glover reprises their role, but they're in this film for literally a few seconds. Everyone else I just thought did just subpar, nothing very special at all. Rafiki, there was some times where he did really good job with the storytelling, but nothing really stood out. The animation of this entire film was definitely a big upgrade. Like I mentioned before, the animals definitely expressed themselves a lot more, and you could definitely tell what the animals were thinking. So I will say this movie did do a good job in the animation department. It wasn't like a shitty live action remake where it was noticeably bad and it was noticeably just ugly to look at. Yes, this movie was definitely pretty, but this still doesn't mean I want more of them. I really think Disney should stop doing these live action remakes, because honestly, half the time it's just a serious money waster, but again, half the other times they're really big gains. So I don't know. We'll see what happens when they eventually or maybe fuck up Stitch and Hercules, which if they do, I will go to war against Disney. With the animation, the set pieces that they were in also looked very pretty. The scenes where they were in the snow looked really good. The scenes where they were traveling up mountains was really good. But I really didn't feel the same way when it got to the Pride Lands, which again, spoiler alert, the Pride Lands is in this film. They didn't really catch my eye, but I'm not gonna say why. I really will have to mention that later in the spoiler section when I talk about the actual plot and story. I thought there were some pretty decent, cool camera shots, but and nothing really special on there. I really didn't feel anything towards the end of this movie. I was kind of bored the entire time. It definitely didn't make me laugh, except one fourth wall joke that got a small chuckle or giggle out of me. Hell, even the children watching this film in the audience where I went to, they just sounded very bored and really didn't feel interested in this movie. So you could definitely tell, based on what I've seen and what I'm saying, this movie felt like it really didn't have a purpose for even being made. I already know this film is going to make probably a lot more money than any other film internationally. Of course, it's Disney. Everyone is going to go see those films no matter what. There's not even there's no real point in even saying that, oh, we're not going to go watch it. Yes, you are. People are going to go watch it. One small thing before I talk about the actual plot. Yeah, this film, definitely not better than Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Please do not take your kids to go see this movie. Go watch Sonic. You'll have a lot more fun than watching this film. And based on how things are going with this movie and its money and what the directors and people in charge are already talking about, there's probably going to be more of this story. They're definitely remaking Lion King 2. They're definitely probably going to make Lion King 1.5 in the live action remake, even though that's going to be very stupid because half of that film is literally just the first Lion King movie. So yeah, these series of Lion King live action films ain't going anywhere, boys. So yeah, I'm going to start talking about the plot. If you care about spoilers, then yeah, go to this part on the screen. I'm giving you this amount of time left. If you don't give a shit, then keep watching. So yeah, there's your warning. And let's begin. So yeah, even though this film is technically a prequel, it takes place, after the events of the first film. Simba and Nala gave birth to a little kitten cub and is expecting to have another, so they have to travel to the oasis, or this place where they basically have a vacation to give birth to the new cub. In the meantime, Simba asks Timon and Pumbaa to watch over Kiara while he's away, entrusting the entirety of the kingdom to them. I thought that was pretty funny, but nothing really bad happens anyway. Then they're visited by Rafiki, who's really just chilling, and they decide to all hang out, and they want a story to be told, so Rafiki uses this opportunity to tell the story of Mufasa and his brother Scar and how things turned out the way they did. Throughout this, telling of the story, Timon and Pumbaa interrupts it just to have their own commentary. I'm not going to mention it for every time because honestly it was kind of annoying, and just know it happened 4 times throughout the entire film. So I'm going to tell the entire prequel story as a whole, and then at the end I'll tell you what happens after the story's been told. So yeah, Mufasa was a pretty broke boy. He grew up with his parents who believed in this land called Malele, which we will soon come to find out is really just the Pride Lands. They believe this is the perfect place of harmony where people can live in peace, and they're trying to get there, but eventually it starts raining, and this builds up a lot of rain in this canyon or this like empty river. And like 2 seconds later, the river is immediately flooded, and Mufasa was playing in the water, and he got swept away by the river because I guess it was causing a lot of like commotion, and it broke a dam or whatever. But basically, Mufasa got separated from his parents because of the river, and he is then found by who's apparently royalty, which I don't even know what that means. They don't really explain it, but he's found by Taka, who we will then find out to be Scar. Taka, finds him and is like, hey, what are you doing? By the way, there's a crocodile behind you. He helps him get out of the water, and they do the thing where in the first film where Scar grabbed Mufasa by the hands and let him go to kill him. They do that twice in this film. This was the first time, almost nodding to the audience like, hey guys, remember this from the first film? Remember that dramatic moment that we fucked up in the last 2019 remake? So he saves him. Taka's mom come and is like, hey, what are you doing? You shouldn't be hanging out with these strays or whatever. And Taka's like, oh, but Mufasa is my friend. I want him to be my brother. And they befriend each other. They chase around, run around, do what little kids do. They play because they are both in need of companionship and a brother. So they formed their relationship based on this. And, it's very wholesome. It's very adorable. Taka's father, played by Zavala, by the way. I thought that was very funny. A very cool voice acting choice. He's like, hey, I don't want my son playing around with this other lion. He is royalty. So he then challenges Taka to chase Mufasa to a tree and back home. And if Mufasa wins, then he can stay. And, of course, they chase each other. They have some fun doing it. There's a lot of cool moments where they're both taking the lead, but eventually Mufasa takes the lead and wins. It's at this point where they explain that Mufasa is kind of athletic. He really was active, and this plays into the whole fact that Mufasa was a stronger cub when they were both little. Scar or Taka really wasn't that athletic, so he really had no chance of winning. So now Mufasa is welcome into this pride, which I guess is royalty, but again, they don't really explain how they're royalty. They just are for some reason. Both grow up, and because Taka's dad doesn't still really like Mufasa, he has Mufasa, train with the women or the other lion cubs. This is where Mufasa learns how to hunt, and Taka learns how to be lazy because his dad doesn't really want to do anything. Then out of nowhere, the white people, I'm just kidding, the white lions, they attack Mufasa and all of them, and they eventually fight back, and Mufasa eventually even kills one of the other lions, and they're then chased back, and they realize that they messed with the wrong lions. These lions swear vengeance. They chase him out. They run. Mufasa and Taka are really the ones who runs away from these people because there's like a lot of them, and Kiros is the guy, the leader of the white lions. I believe they're called the Outsiders, and apparently they also killed a bunch of their lions, so it's really fucked up. It's really dangerous and tense, and they run away, and eventually they meet Sarabi, who was also running away from those white lions as well, and they're then introduced to Zazu, who seems like, let me check. Yeah, apparently John Oliver didn't really reprise his role, but the voice they got definitely sounded like him. They all decide they're all going to go to Malele together to find a new home. Eventually, they run into this situation where they're trying to cross like a canyon. They decide to go like under, or the underpath section because it was safer that way. Oh, yeah, also they meet Rafiki, a young Rafiki, who tells them about Malele and encourages them to keep going and keep believing in their dream. And it's at this point where they talk about how they don't really know, or Rafiki doesn't really know if Malele is real, but they believe it in their heart, so it must be real. And as they're going, Taka realizes that, hey, he pretty much likes Sarabi and wants to confess. He asks Mufasa on some advice on what to say, and he gives him the best advice ever, basically giving him a free layup to, slide into those DMs, those lion DMs. He tries this out and it kind of doesn't work, but still he does what he can, and this will be important later. And as this is all going on, the outsiders continue to chase them down into this canyon, so they realize that they're being chased, so they use like the elephant stampede and some bees to like cause a commotion and, you know, chase out the other lions. This is all really dangerous because they all could have been trampled on, and it's at this moment also where Mufasa saves Sarabi from being stepped on and says like, I got you, and everyone else is okay and fine. They fend off the white lions just for a little bit longer. Also, Mufasa tells Sarabi that, oh hey, Taka saved you should like him. Afterwards, they go to a snowy mountain, you know, because they get high enough to get to a snowy mountain. They're still on their way to Malele. It's at this moment where everyone decides to go to sleep for the night. Mufasa and Sarabi have a moment where they're up late in the night. I don't know why. I believe they were hunting or something, but Sarabi exposes Mufasa like, hey, you're the one who actually saved me. You're the alpha lion, not Taka. He didn't do shit. And Mufasa explains that, no, it really was Taka who saved you. And of course, the reason why he's saying this is because Mufasa owes his entire life to Taka. He doesn't really even likes Sarabi, at least not yet, and he would rather Taka be happy because he's the one who said he had feelings for her, so he really was trying to genuinely lay him up in a sense, but Sarabi was like, nope, you're the alpha lion, I like you better, you're stronger, you're the one who's going to be king, not him. And Mufasa doesn't really know what to say with this. He kind of just goes along with it and just admits he was the one who's kind of been saving her and being the one taking charge instead of Taka, who hasn't really done those things. There's some other things that he's been like, you know, lying about Taka, but yeah, Mufasa, you know, takes credit for everything he really has done, and they have this moment where they officially fall in love together. They sing, which they sing that song that I don't really like. It doesn't really feel like a musical piece at all, but they sing it, and Taka sees all of this and realizes that, oh shit, Mufasa is an asshole. He took the one girl that I loved, even though they had just met like for 2 days or so, or 5 days or whatever. It doesn't even really matter. Taka gets genuinely pissed off, and this genuinely starts his villain arc, which is so stupid. Imagine one of the best villains ever made by Disney exposes why he really is evil, and it all started because he fell in love with a certain someone, and his brother mistakenly took it in a way. And you know, if they would have had just a genuine conversation and be like, hey, she came on to me, she really has feelings for me and she doesn't really like you, maybe Scar or Taka could have understood. But no, that doesn't really happen. Taka gets extremely emotional and sides with the fucking white lions and tells them where they're going and leads them like to their locations and leaves behind footprints for them to follow. This all happens because Taka was in love with a girl that they had just met. Yeah, fuck getting to Malele to then see if there's any other lion mates out there for Taka. No, he really is dead set on Sarabi, this one person that he just met. It doesn't make sense at all. I understand this is a Disney movie and romance is very, you know, overplayed, but holy shit, is this stupid. This all started because he got cucked. I know that was kind of hinted at in the original film, like Scar had this like weird feeling or, you know, approach towards Sarabi in the original film, but I didn't really think it was all that deep. But yeah, it is. So yeah, this happens, and like I said, Taka betrays them, and this is, I guess, where he learns to take advantage of people when they're desperate and hungry for power, because all the white lions were struggling to get through the snowy mountains, and Scar was like, hey, I know the way, so you just got to team up with me and we'll take down Mufasa. So eventually they get to Malele. Everything's all cool and dandy. Rafiki finds a big tree, and also earlier in the film he has his big stick and he decides, yep, this is home. And as they get there, they realize they've been followed, and the giraffes tell Mufasa that they've been followed, and I don't know how they know, but they just know. And they're like, hey, yeah, those white lions are here right now, actually. They're over there. Also, before this, there's a moment where Rafiki tells Mufasa, you're my real brother, and, you know, more of a spiritual brother in a sense. And it's kind of ironic because he also lost his other spiritual brother in a sense, because Taka decided to betray them. Yeah, the white lions are here and they're all fighting. Mufasa decides, hey, everyone, let's stand together. We can fight these lions and I'll do it for you guys. So this all happens, and eventually it's like a 1v1, but the other white lions fight off other people, and this leads to a moment where they all like fight in the cave that becomes the like home of Mufasa and Pride Rock, the main rocky little cave home that they live in. They fight here and a bunch of ruckus is happening, fights are happening really, and I guess so much commotion happens that a mini earthquake appears. I'm probably getting it all wrong, but from what I remember, like a bunch of earthquakes happen and like rocks fall and everything because of all the lions fighting, and a river it appears in the cave of where they're living in. So I guess there's always been a cave there. Before that, there was a moment where Mufasa and Krios was fighting, but Taka's like, no, I can't let my brother die, and he gets in the way of a swipe attack and he takes damage, and that's how he got his scar on his eye, people. So that's been answered. Wow, I guess. Cool. So they tag team on him and they fight some more, and I honest to God do not remember exactly what happened. It was just kind of a whatever scene. All I remember is Mufasa and Krios were fighting in the water. A rock fell on Krios. He died. Mufasa is getting up, and they do another one of those moments where Taka put his claws on Mufasa, but to pick him up this time to save his life, he emerges. All the other white lions are dead, and Mufasa is king now because everyone says, oh, you're the king, you're strong, we need you to protect us. And at first he doesn't want to be king, and then he decides to say, fuck it, I'm gonna be king. He doesn't banish Scar for his betrayal, but he then decides to put a name on him as Scar, but he'll still live there, and he says Scar is for him to remember what he did. It's also at this moment where Mufasa's mom shows up, because apparently she's been looking for Mufasa this entire time, and she's just been there this entire time. I guess she was in the original film. I don't really remember. But also, Mufasa's dad isn't there, so it's implied, and I'm pretty sure they even said it, he died when that whole rainstorm happened in the beginning of the film. So yeah, everything ends the way it does. Mufasa is now king, and he makes a big roar, and yep, that's the Lion King Mufasa prequel story. Then Kiara is like, oh, that was a cool story. I can't wait to tell my family about it and ask more questions. And then Simba and Nala comes home. They have a new cub, and it's a boy. And Kiara takes this moment to be like, I'm going to protect you. And I could have sworn, or at least I wanted her to be like, I've always wanted a brother. That would have been pretty funny, but that doesn't happen. The movie ends. That's it. Yeah, The Lion King, Mufasa, the movie we really didn't need, or we really didn't deserve. I just didn't like this movie at all. It is not memorable at all. It wasn't special. It wasn't needed. There is very, very little to like about this film. Everything is just fine. I can't really say this was like the worst movie of the year. It wasn't that special or great at all. And as far as the score goes, I'm just going to get this out of the way because there's not much left to talk about. I'm going to give it like a 5 out of 10, maybe a 5.5, but I could also go as low as a 4.5. This was just mid. This is definitely not worth watching, and I will never understand the people who think this film is better than the other films that are out there. There's definitely way better things to watch, and yeah, I'm glad I watched it so I could have my own opinion, but yeah, go watch Sonic. Definitely don't watch this. But hey, there's going to be a lot of people who don't really care. If you like Disney and The Lion King and you like Lions, then, there's nothing wrong with that. Go watch it. I just personally don't think it's that great of a film. I really enjoy The Lion King as a franchise. It's one of my favorite movies out there. Not my favorite Disney animated film, but I do like the franchise, and I really wish Disney would take care of it more. I'm glad that they decided to add more expression to the animals because that was definitely needed. But I really wish there was just passion and care behind these films. But hey, maybe Lion King 2 live action will be the best thing ever made, or Lion King 1.5. Maybe they'll go back and remake some of the scenes. I don't know. The fact that I'm talking about them making more of these is already crazy enough. But yeah, that's really all I gotta say. More reviews to come. I'm definitely going to keep making more film reviews, and I'm going to try my best to improve on them. Thank you everybody for watching throughout this year, and yeah, have a great holiday and stay safe. Goodbye.